Have you ever felt the strange pain of reaching for comfort and finding nothing there? No message, no hand, no voice that makes the room feel safe again. For many women, that moment does not arrive with noise. It comes quietly. One ordinary morning, one long night, 1 hour when the heart is tired and suddenly understands that the people once leaned on are no longer able to carry the weight, and that is where this journey begins. Not in applause, not in rescue, but in silence. A silence so deep it feels almost alive. At first it seems cruel, it seems like life is taking too much. But stay with me, because what looks like the end of support may actually be the beginning of strength. What feels like abandonment may be the moment a woman is pushed back toward what is most real inside her. There is a place beyond performance, beyond pleasing, beyond trying to hold everything together for everyone else. And many women only discover that place when all the outer noise falls away. If this speaks to something hidden in you, keep watching in your mind all the way through, because what comes next may explain why some of the hardest seasons of life are also the most sacred. Sometimes losing what held you up is the only way to discover what can never be taken from you. And before this is over, you may see that the silence you feared is not empty at all. It may be the very place where your soul begins to breathe again. There is a moment in a woman's life that changes everything, and yet almost nobody around her notices it. It is not dramatic from the outside. She may still wake up, answer people, go to work, wash dishes, smile when needed. But inside, something has shifted. She realizes there is no one left to return to in the old way. No person whose presence instantly tells her she is okay. No relationship strong enough to hide her confusion. No familiar role that can fully protect her from herself. And what unsettles her most is not only the loneliness, it is the shock of seeing how much of her identity had been built around others, around being loved, around being chosen, around being needed, around being the one who stays strong so everybody else can fall apart. When all of that begins to break, she does not only grieve a person or a season, she grieves the version of herself that existed inside that old structure. This is why the loss feels so deep. It is not one wound. It is many at once. The loss of closeness, the loss of certainty, the loss of the mirror she used to read herself through. And if she is honest, she begins to see that for a very long time, she had been living through reflections, through roles, through expectations, through quiet bargains made in the heart. If I love enough, if I hold enough, if I endure enough, then I will not be left alone. But now the room is quiet, and in that quiet, a hard truth enters. She must learn who she is when nobody else is telling her. There was once a woman who shared small pieces of her life online. Nothing flashy, nothing perfect, just simple moments that made people feel warm. A meal in a tiny kitchen, a tired laugh at the end of a long day, honest words about love, marriage, responsibility, and the pressure of growing up without losing your softness. People watched her because she felt real. She seemed like someone who had found a place to belong. Her life did not look grand, but it looked steady. Then one day she disappeared. No warning, no long explanation, just silence. And when she finally returned much later, something in her had changed so deeply that even her quiet felt different. The home was smaller, the room was bare, the old sense of togetherness was gone. She spoke only a little, but what she said stayed in the mind. There was a season when she woke up and did not know who to call when her heart was collapsing, and then she realized that the frightening part was not living alone. The frightening part was that when no one stood beside her anymore, she no longer knew who she was. That sentence cuts deep because many women know it without saying it. When the role changes, when the relationship ends, when the support disappears, the soul is forced to ask a question it had been postponing for years. Who am I if I am not someone's comfort, someone's answer, someone's chosen one, someone's helper, someone's home? That question is painful, but it is also the door. And once it opens, there is no easy way back to the old sleep. In seasons like this, hidden things begin to rise. Fears that once stayed in the background move to the front. Needs that wore the costume of love start showing their real face. A woman may realize that some relationships she called deep were also places where she searched for proof that she mattered. She may see that some sacrifices were beautiful, but others came from fear. Fear of rejection, fear of being forgotten, fear that if she stopped giving, she would stop being loved. This is not a reason for shame. It is a reason for honesty, because many women were taught to survive by adapting, by soothing, by carrying more than their share, by keeping peace even when their own hearts were slowly disappearing inside the effort. When outer support is removed, all of that becomes visible. It feels like standing on a narrow bridge in thick fog. Before, someone walked beside you, and their presence made the shaking feel smaller. Their hand gave rhythm to your steps. Their voice made the danger easier to ignore. But now you cross alone. The bridge still moves. The fog is still heavy. The future is still unclear. Yet, with every trembling step, something unexpected happens. You discover that you are still moving, slowly, weakly some days, tearfully on others, but still moving. And perhaps faith begins exactly there, not when the whole road is visible, not when the heart feels brave, but when a woman keeps walking through uncertainty and starts learning that strength is not the absence of fear. Strength is staying present while fear has not yet left. After the first shock of loss, another stage begins. The noise dies down and silence starts to speak. At first, this silence is unbearable. It does not feel peaceful. It feels exposing. Old thoughts return. Buried sadness starts rising without warning. Strange tiredness appears in the middle of ordinary tasks. A woman may realize how long she kept going without ever asking herself what she truly felt. She may see how often she understood others while ignoring her own pain. She may notice how many times she stayed quiet, not because she was at peace, but because speaking felt dangerous. Silence reveals all of this. It is like muddy water finally being left alone. While it is constantly stirred, nothing can be seen. But when the motion stops, what was hidden at the bottom slowly becomes clear. That is what this quiet season does. It does not create new wounds. It reveals the old ones. It does not invent emptiness. It uncovers the emptiness that busy living had been covering. And this is why many people run from silence. They fill every gap with work, messages, noise, obligation, scrolling, conversation, and constant motion. Anything to avoid the still place where truth can be heard. But if a woman remains there long enough, she begins to notice subtle signals. A discomfort around things she once accepted. A weariness with the role she used to perform so well. A longing for something more honest, more steady, more whole. Stay here with me, because this part matters. What feels empty may actually be the first clear sound of inner truth. This quiet does not usually hand over answers all at once. It speaks in hints, in repeated thoughts, in emotions that keep returning, in tears that seem to come from nowhere, in the body growing tired of pretending, in the heart refusing to go back to what once felt normal. That is why this stage requires patience, not force, not instant solutions, just patience. A woman does not need to fix her life in one night. She does not need to understand every wound by morning. She only needs to stop abandoning herself every time silence becomes uncomfortable. That alone changes everything. She can sit still for a few minutes without reaching for distraction. She can write down the thoughts that repeat. She can notice which memories still sting and which situations drain her spirit. She can stop calling every ache weakness. Some aches are messages, some tears are truth leaving hiding, some lonely evenings are not punishment but preparation. And there is something else that happens here. Slowly, very quietly, she begins to feel that silence is not always empty. Sometimes it carries a strange kind of guidance, not loud words, not magic answers, just a steady inner nudge, a sense that something false is falling away. a sense that some doors should stay closed, a sense that she no longer wants to betray herself just to feel accepted. This is the beginning of real inner listening. It is gentle, but it is powerful. And if she keeps honoring it, her life starts changing from the inside out. Not because she is trying to become a new person overnight, but because she is finally hearing the one who has been buried under years of noise, duty, fear, and performance. Then another truth appears. The supports that once felt solid were not always as strong as they seemed. Many women believe they are strong because they can hold others together, carry pain quietly, keep relationships alive, and survive hard seasons without collapsing in public. But when a marriage ends, when a friendship breaks, when the house grows quiet, when no one needs them in the old way, they discover something painful. Much of their strength had been built on being necessary to someone else. Much of their stability came from having a role to play. Much of their worth came from being chosen, needed, or depended on. So when those outer anchors disappear, the soul shakes. Not because the woman is weak, but because she is finally seeing where she had placed her weight. There are mornings in this season when the fear is not, I am alone. The fear is, if I am no longer this role, then who am I? If I am no longer the one who saves, the one who keeps peace, the one who is always there, then what remains of me? This is one of the hardest places to stand in because there is nowhere left to hide. The heart must begin building a different foundation, one that does not rise and fall with other people's approval, one that does not collapse every time love changes shape, one that does not need constant proof from outside to know it has value. This process is slow, very slow, but it is real. And if you have ever felt yourself breaking here, do not rush away. The breaking may not be destroying you. It may be exposing what was never meant to carry your whole identity. Think of a tree that grew for years inside a protected garden. The walls around it blocked the harsh wind. The soil was easy. The air was calm. It had little reason to grow roots deep into the earth because the outside world rarely demanded it. Then one day, the walls are gone. The wind hits hard, the trunk shakes, the branches strain. At first, it looks weaker than before. It leans, it trembles. It seems almost too fragile for the open field. But something important is happening beneath the surface. Because of the wind, the roots are now forced to go deeper. They search for a hold that does not depend on protection from outside. That is what this season does in a woman's life. It removes false shelter so deeper roots can form. She may still have days when she wants to run back to what is familiar, days when she misses the old illusion of safety, days when she feels unsteady and wonders if she is making progress at all. But every time she stays present instead of running, every time she chooses honesty over performance, every time she lets herself feel without rushing back into old patterns, another root goes deeper. This is not about never needing people again. It is not about becoming cold, closed, or untouched by love. It is about learning that her value does not begin when someone approves of her and does not end when someone leaves. Watch this part closely because this is where real change becomes visible. She starts standing not because life suddenly becomes easy, but because something inside her is becoming steady enough to hold her even on difficult days. But the journey goes deeper still. Once a woman has passed through the first loneliness and begun to stand a little more from within, she is often led into a harder meeting, a meeting with the darkness she had avoided for years. This is where loneliness stops being just the absence of people and becomes an inner chamber. Here, old defenses thin out. The gentle image she tried to keep starts cracking. The reasons behind her patterns begin to appear. She may see that some of her kindness was mixed with fear of rejection. Some of her silence was a way of avoiding conflict. Some of what she called devotion was actually panic at the thought of being left. Some of what she called strength was numbness. This is hard to face because the shadow does not announce itself clearly. It appears through overreactions, strange sadness, repeating choices, unexplained anxiety, and the sharp pain of small things touching old wounds. An old story speaks of a woman descending through 7 gates, leaving behind one layer of identity at each gate until she stood with nothing left to hide behind. That image fits this season well, because many women are slowly stripped of titles, roles, and protective images until they come face to face with what is true underneath. Not polished, not impressive, just true. And strange as it sounds, this is not the place where life ends. It is the place where honesty begins. No more pretending to be untouched. No more calling deep pain nothing. No more decorating wounds with spiritual language while refusing to feel them. Stay with this, because the darkness is not here to swallow her. It is here to show her what must be seen so it can finally be healed. Imagine diving beneath the surface of the ocean. At first, the water is bright. The top looks simple, safe, easy to understand. But the deeper you go, the stranger everything becomes. The light weakens. Shapes appear that were never visible from above. Movements feel mysterious. Sounds change. And if you are not used to depth, you may want to rush back to the surface at once. Yet the ocean was always that deep. It did not become darker because you entered it. You simply reached a place you had never dared to see before. Loneliness works like that. It does not create all the hidden pain. It brings a woman close enough to finally notice it. And when she does not run this time, something sacred begins. She starts seeing the fragments of herself, the rejected parts, the tired parts, the angry parts, the grieving parts, the parts that learned to smile while silently starving. And in the deepest part of that encounter, when every outer support has been stripped away, many women discover something unexpected. They are not entirely alone there. In the very place they feared most, a quiet presence begins to meet them, not with accusation, not with panic, but with steadiness, with a silence that does not abandon, with a depth that does not turn away from what is ugly, unfinished, or wounded. This matters more than it first appears, because healing does not begin when a woman becomes perfect. It begins when she can remain present with what is imperfect, without fleeing, without pretending, and without hating herself for being human. That is the turning point. Quiet, hidden, but life-changing. And after this long inner night, a softer stage starts to open. The woman stops trying to escape herself. She stops searching so desperately for a new outer answer to cover the old inner ache. Instead, she remains. She stays with the silence a little longer. She stays with the emptiness without rushing to fill it. She stays with the truth even when it is still incomplete. And from this staying, a different kind of life begins to form, not loud, not dramatic, not a movie ending, more like a slow return. She is no longer living in order to become acceptable. She begins living from what is real. She stops trying to cut away every part of herself that looks unfinished and starts learning how to understand it, hold it, and bring it into a larger wholeness. This is where the true self begins to feel less like an idea and more like a lived reality. A woman notices that she is no longer split in two all the time. She does not have to keep managing a public version and a hidden version every moment. She can breathe, she can say yes with honesty and no without guilt, swallowing her whole. She can want what she wants without calling it selfish. She can feel sadness without treating it like failure. Even from a simple human point of view, this makes sense. When the nervous system is no longer constantly pulled by pressure, fear, and outer stimulation, the mind becomes clearer. Inner signals are easier to hear. A deeper kind of integration begins. She does not become unrealistically calm. She becomes more centered, more awake, more herself. Picture a compass that has spent years surrounded by magnetic interference. Too many signals, too many demands, too many voices, too much fear. Its needle keeps spinning, unable to settle, unable to point in a true direction. But when the interference fades, the movement slows. Little by little, the needle steadies. It points. That is what happens here. When a woman is no longer pulled so hard by expectation, by panic, by the need to be approved of, by the fear of being left, something inside her begins to settle. She starts choosing differently. She wakes more slowly and listens before rushing into noise. She stops grabbing her phone the instant her eyes open. She notices the state of her heart before the world tells her what to feel. She sits for a few quiet minutes. She breathes. She names what is actually present, not what sounds spiritual, not what sounds strong, what is real. Some mornings it is peace. Some mornings it is grief. Some mornings it is anger. Some mornings it is emptiness. But honesty itself becomes healing. And over time, this practice changes more than mood. It changes direction. She is no longer in a hurry to force life into shape. She no longer panics when answers are delayed. She listens more. She reacts less. She moves with more care. She trusts the quiet point within instead of chasing every outside sign. And slowly, the fruit begins to show. Relationships that require her to shrink start falling away. Connections that honor truth begin to grow. Choices become cleaner. Life becomes simpler but deeper. If this part speaks to you, hold on, because the final truth of this journey is not about being untouched by pain. It is about becoming so real that pain no longer gets to define you. So, when a woman has no one left to cling to, it may feel at first as if she is losing everything. But often she is being led into a deeper recovery. The noise fades, the masks loosen, the borrowed definitions begin to crumble. The old dependence on outside reflection is exposed. Silence reveals what the busy world covered. Loneliness draws her inward. The hidden wounds rise. The shadow is faced. The false supports fall. The roots go deeper. And in that long returning, she starts touching the part of herself that does not vanish when people leave, when roles change, when love disappoints, or when life grows painfully quiet. She finds a steadier center, not a perfect one, a real one. She learns that wholeness is not built by protecting a beautiful image in front of the world. It grows when a person walks through breakdown with honesty and keeps refusing to abandon her own soul. That is why some of the hardest seasons become holy in ways that only the heart can understand. If this script found you at the right moment, maybe that is not random. Maybe something in you is being called back home, not to a place outside you, but to the deepest place within where truth, healing, and quiet strength begin. And if you are still in the middle of your own silence, do not be afraid of your pace. You do not need to become strong all at once. You only need to stay a little longer, a little deeper, a little more honestly than before. Because one day you will look back and realize that the season you thought would break you was the very season that taught you how to stand.